Hello, my friend. Welcome to today's podcast episode. And today I'm going to be talking to you guys about what I am doing in this month of December to reflect on the year 2023 and prep myself for 2024. And this process is simple, streamlined. It's a structure that you guys can take and tweak to what will work best for you. I've really had a huge breakthrough year in 2023, and I did an episode on this, like 3 things that changed my life this year. I will link that in the show notes. I know the episode title is dramatic, but it is so true. These 3 things did really create big change and transformation in my life. 2024 is about tweaking that and refining and continuing to get better and better while also savoring the season of life that I'm in. So let's roll into today's episode. Welcome to the Living in Sync podcast, where we will talk about the biological blueprint of your cycle and how your hormones impact every area of your life. I'm your host, Joelle, certified nutritionist, mom of 2, fitness coach for over a decade, and I want to help you better understand your cycle to work with your body in achieving your goals. I will teach you how to care for your body in a well-rounded and realistic way that caters to your season of life and feel freaking amazing. In every episode, you will get tips, takeaways, and just feel like this is a heart-to-heart chat with a friend. Let's roll into today's episode. I really just now realized how many times you guys hear, let's roll into today's episode. Before we actually roll into today's episode, we're getting into it though. This is going to be a structure that you can refine and tweak, but I'm also going to be going more in depth on Patreon throughout the month of December. So if you want exclusive content, I know in the past, we have done 2 episodes per week here. You guys have seen it drop down to 1. There was like a mid-November break that happened, but the Patreon episodes still go into Patreon every single month. So if you want more, and if you want more in depth, hop into Patreon. It's only $5 a month. And I'm going to outline what I'm specifically doing in this month, because for me, sometimes I feel the nudge to align myself with the new year in January. This year, I'm feeling really reflective on doing this month and having it kind of be a process that I do throughout this month and keep in my heart throughout this month. So then I start January. And while if this doesn't feel like the right time for you to really reflect, resonate, refine, and prep for the new year, then that's a-okay. I think that New Year's and then my birthday, so my birthday's in August, so that's the 8th month of the year, but I really heard from somebody once that around your birthday and around the new year are 2 really great times to become reflective, recenter, and course correct where needed. And if you are not the type of person that doesn't set goals, doesn't believe in New Year's resolutions, doesn't want to evaluate or have growth, like I really don't think this podcast is for you. In the past, I've been kind of doing a dance around like, if you don't want to set goals, that's fine. To me, no. It's like with this life, I really want to make sure that I'm living in sync, not just with my cycle, but with my season of life and all of the things. And then align with that. I set goals. And if that's not for you, okay, but this podcast is not going to be for you, right? You're just going to pick apart. You're going to decide that this isn't for you, whatever, drop the excuses. Either take this and try it, even if you do a 10-minute journaling session, or if you really get nitty-gritty and create something more in depth. This is what I am going to be doing. This is what I suggest even my friends, anybody I know to sit down and do. And for me, I have a day on my schedule where I am going to sit down and make myself do this. Now, depending on the season of life you're in, your flexibility with your work options, maybe this is just one night where you are like, okay, for a half an hour, I'm going to sit down and do this and think about this and reflect on this and course correct and plan and prep. Or maybe for you, it's like a couple hour time block. For me, it's going to be a couple hour time block. As a business owner, I'm going to be doing this in both business and personal. So that big time block time is a reflection for both personal and business. So the first thing that I am going to do is I am going to look at my planner and my journal. So I am very diligent with my Horatio printing planner, and I have a journal ever since I read The Gap and the Gain last year. So in 2022, I haven't been every day consistent with my journal, but I know that looking at my journal, paying attention to what was going on in my heart. So I'm really looking at two things. How did I spend my days and my schedule? And then an emotional reflection where I'm going to look at those times where I was journaling and things were tough and challenging, or times where they were really amazing and awesome. And even just, I cannot tell for myself or for you right now what's going to come up in looking at those two things. But I'm just telling you, the first thing that I'm going to be doing is sitting with my paper planner. And some of the weeks are not filled out. And I'm going to be sitting down with my journal. Like, they are not too perfectly polished, filled in every single day detail type of thing. But I'm going to sit down with those two tools and I'm going to look at where was I spending my time? How was I spending my time? What was I doing? Then I'm going to look at the emotional piece from my journal and what was going on and see if anything comes through. So that is the first thing that I'm going to do during my scheduled time, is go through my paper planner and go through my journal and just reflect. I'm going to also write down what comes up in those reflections. The next thing that I'm going to do is I am going to sit with solitude for quite a while. So my next plan is to sit in solitude, sit in prayer, and ask for God's guidance. I'm also going to ask myself a handful of questions, asking myself really great questions. Maybe I will just be a crazy person and answer them out loud. Maybe I'll put them in my journal and write them down. But the next thing that I'm going to do is silence, solitude, and ask myself some really deep questions on how the year went and what I really feel in my heart I need to focus on for 2024. Once again, I do not know what the answers of this are going to be yet, because I haven't done this yet, but I know in my heart, this is one thing that is going to I'm really going to pray and ask God to come be with me in this time, even though it's like a scheduled date where I'm going to sit down and do this. I'm going to take out I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I'm really going to invite God into the space to open up my heart, to open up my mind. I'm going to have space. I'm going to, turn my fireplace on, have the Christmas tree on, make a hot cup of tea, and just sit and see what comes through. I can be so busy and so regimented and so scheduled that I don't create space and be quiet enough or still enough for God to talk to me. And because I know that this date is on my calendar and on my schedule, I'm praying about it already. I'm praying like, God, on this day, during this month of December, can you please show me? Can you please guide me? Can you please be so clear to me what it is that you want? And for me in 2024. And then the next thing I'm going to do are the things that really set me up for success for the upcoming year. One of the things that I do, and I'm going to go in depth on this in the Patreon community, is my prayer for the year. This was something that I just did because there was a space in my planner, the beginning page. I wrote out on the cover of my planner, so like the inside cover of my planner, a prayer for 2023. And I cannot tell you guys how many times I went back to that prayer at different times throughout the year and grounded myself in it. So I have shared the prayer in the Patreon. I am going to share full on what I write out for 2024 for the front cover of my 2024 planner in Patreon. So if you want to know more about that, if you want to see the details of it, but I'm going to write out a prayer for 2024. I'm going to remember that it's in the front space, the front inside cover of my planner. And it's not something that like, oh, I have a weekly rhythm where I go back to that. I just naturally let my heart gravitate me towards that prayer when I needed it. And it grounded me in so many moments. And I can really see how it was a driving force, a divine force for my 2023. The next thing I'm going to do is set up my planner. So whatever paper planner that you have or that you use, I've used the Horatio printing one for at least 3 years now because it has structure and it also has space. It's very simple. There are quarterly plans in it and there's a prompt there. It also even comes with a little QR code where there's video visuals to help you set up your planner. I'm not affiliated with the company at all. I just use their products. I use so much of Horatio printing stuff. So check out that and I will set up my planner during this scheduled time frame. I will follow it as it's set up in the Horatio printing, whatever one that you are using. Just utilize those pages because so many planners have those front pages, but what we do is just dig in. And I I don't plan out the whole year to a T. I really go on quarterly. So I know some people do like a word of the year. I will think of a word for the quarter. After I set up my planner, and because it is like a quarterly planner setup, I will kind of just think about the quarter, or maybe it's a verse, or, I love with the Horatio printing planner, there's a verse on each week spread. So I don't have to pick a verse of the year. I really each week get to ground myself in a verse. Maybe for you it's a word or an affirmation, whatever it is, but I'll set up my planner and I encourage you to whatever planner you are using. It probably has like set up prompting pages instead of just like flipping right away to the calendar portion. Utilize those front pages. And another thing I'm going to do, and this is going to be kind of fun, is setting up a bingo card. I saw this on TikTok where somebody, and I'm just not that much of a like visual vibey person. Like whenever I create moody vision boards or Pinterest boards or something like that, I'm kind of just like, oh yeah, these are pretty, but they don't ignite me. But something about creating this 2024 bingo card where you essentially, because it's a bingo card, you create 24-ish things, and as they happen, you X them and just see what pattern. I mean, not necessarily that you have to get a bingo, but you could even make it really fun in the sense of like, if you get a bingo, so 4 in a row, you set up a milestone of like a celebration or a reward or something that you are wanting to look forward. So if you hit a bingo, maybe it's purchasing a pair of shoes that you've really wanted or whatever it is, or a new outfit, or whatever it is. Not that you even have to like achieve in order to earn. You don't have to do that, but if it makes it more fun for you, like why not? So I'm going to create a bingo card, and it's going to be a mix of both business and life and personal goals and things, and some of them are going to be a stretch, but most of them are going to be in that realm of being realistic, because I've found that when I set goals that are in the realm of realistic and you hit them, it's more motivating to keep going instead of always aiming for this big stretch that feels so far-fetched, that feels so far away. This is why I think in the To Be mindset, her approach of weight loss being 2 pounds at a time, like if you can lose 2 pounds, then you can lose 2 pounds 5 times. If you can lose 2 pounds, you can lose 2 pounds 10 times. And seeing it in that way, I feel has just been a much better way of creating momentum towards goals, instead of always like, I always see a telescope vision. I always see, my podcast hitting 2 million downloads. I see that in my future. But how I get from here to there is those milestones along the way. And why not have fun and celebrate those milestones along the way, instead of just being like, oh, it'll be a big deal when the podcast hits 2 million downloads. No, like, the podcast is a big deal right now. What you are doing right now, losing 5 pounds, is a big deal right now. Cleaning out your closet and finally getting your stuff organized is a big milestone right now. Like, instead of celebrating or feeling accomplished when your whole house is decluttered, set up the micro milestones and celebrate them along the way. And I just thought this bingo card would be a really great way to do that. And I really think that the reflection of my journal and my planner and my solitude and my silence and my prayer, that is what brings up the aligned action, the way for God to tell me, okay, this is the action that I want you to take. These are the focuses that I want you to do. So often ladies will be like, okay, but if I want to create that, what do I do? You've got to get your heart in check first. And the reflection and silence is what's going to set you up for that. Don't just skip to step 3 and create the vision board without your heart really being up front first, right? I really am so proud of how I spent my day-to-day in 2023. I focused on my intentional priorities. I did a few things each day that were in alignment with my priorities. I'm so proud of that. And if you don't know about my time management method, I have a private podcast feed just for my time management course, where there are micro episodes fully teaching how I do my day-to-day time management, how I spend my days, because I knew how I spent my days is really going to be the momentum of how I have my year, right? Like, is it not? How you spend your day, how you spend today, how you spend tomorrow, and how you really align yourself with the things that matter to you is what's going to be those really slight deposits in being like, oh, I'm so proud of how I spent my year. Because yes, I am so proud of 2023. I'm so proud of what I accomplished. I'm so proud of how I spent my time. I'm so excited for the new direction that I have, both personally and professionally. And now it's time to even get better and better and better and better. On one of our Unruly team meetings, Andrea Crowder talked to us about being so, she didn't use the word excellent, remarkable. She talked about her threshold is remarkability, being remarkable. And I know that this direction that I'm taking, it is so meant for me. It is so aligned, and I'm here for it. And while I'm going to 100% still even be in savoring this season, because a few people have asked me, like, just business wise, how are you going to scale this? How are you going to do that? How are you going to just exponentially grow? And I still see remarkability as refinement. I still see remarkability as intimacy. It doesn't necessarily have to be masses. And I really am just like, I've spent so long being in a business model where it was like more, multiply. And right now I'm like, right now is so good. Right now is so good. And I do want it to become great. And there are things on my mind that come to my heart that will make 2024 great and have growth. But also, if things stay exactly the same, that's okay. Like, if things stay exactly the same, I'm also okay with that. And I don't think I've ever been in a season of my life where it hasn't been just like growth. How does it grow? How is it growing? How is it, I've even had times where I've looked at analytics or I've shared analytics with somebody I'm working with, and they're like, oh, that's good, but like, how can we 10x that? How can we double that? How can we that? And I'm just like, wait a minute. If we're not even going to celebrate 10% growth or 25% growth, like what is that? How is that ever going to attract 50% growth, 150% growth, right? And for me, it's really just savoring, showing up, and really feeling fulfilled and aligned and remarkable in what I'm doing. And even if that remarkability means how I'm spending my time from 5 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. with my boys in the family time, because sometimes those hours are the hardest for me. Those hours I have to be the most patient. It's not hard for me to get in my workout. It's not hard for me to be consistent with my work or to show up for my clients. But sometimes I have to keep myself in check with those things that we're not showing up and sharing about on social media, right? Sitting and being present and being patient during times of homework and cleaning up the kitchen for the millionth time over the last 7 years. I was thinking about this, side note, thinking about this the other day as I was cleaning up. Like when my kids were 1 to 3 years old, I would do kind of quote unquote the closing shift, put the kids to bed, clean up the toys, wipe off the counters, do everything in the kitchen. And now that I've been a mom and I've been doing that for 7 years, that routine and rigmarole doesn't seem so glorious and sexy anymore. It kind of feels mundane and like, why do I have to do this day in and day out and day in and day out? And I think it's just one of those things where I can reflect on, how can I make this more enjoyable? How can I make this something that's not just on my shoulders, especially with my boys being older? That's something we are implementing with them, where before they get to do something that they're wanting to do and really motivated, say, let's give the example of screen time. Okay, before we do that, we're going to do this. Obviously, oh gosh, I kind of now cringe sharing this kind of stuff because number one, things change. And number two, the way we do things does not have to be the way you do things, but we don't do tablet time on the weekdays. That's just something that they get special on the weekends. So that's not something we're doing in the 5 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. time frame. But there's definitely times where I'm like, hey, we're getting this done before we go do that, right? And also it's like with activities, and activities are also quarterly. So when I'm looking at 2024, I am thinking of, it's cold here. We have these activities going on. There's also activities that I want to get the boys into that will help with getting their energy out during the winter months and various things like that. So like I said, this will be both personally and professionally. So I wanted to share with you like a little bit of the tactical of both, but I haven't done this yet, so I don't know fully what is going to come through. And if it's profound and powerful, maybe I'll do an episode in Patreon, or I'll do a follow-up episode come January of what came through in this process for me. But really to round it back out for you guys of what I am doing to prepare and reflect and get myself set up for 2024 is, I know in this month of December, I'm really just letting my nervous system settle. I'm living in the moment, and I've got a block of time on my schedule where I am going to sit down and reflect with my paper planner and my paper journal. So I'm looking at tactfully, like, how was I spending my time and what was going on emotionally? I haven't looked at that. It could be something where I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, this one thing came up and came up and came up and came up and came up. Oh, maybe it's not something like in the moment that seemed like a really big deal, but look at how I process through that. I don't know what's going to come up for that moment, but I think it is so powerful to reflect, especially in a journal. Then I am going to create silence and solitude and space to just hear and be still. And then the next thing is I'm going to set up my planner, write out my prayer for the year, and something fun, new, and different that I'm implementing is a 2024 bingo card. So fun. So if you enjoyed this episode, please let me know. Check out the show notes for any resources that I mentioned, Patreon, as well as the time management course. I'm likely going to be increasing the price for that in 2024, so you can snag it now. It's a lot of the lessons, you guys, are shorter than this podcast episode. So if you're like, I know that it's my day-to-day, I know that I need to get what I'm doing in my day-to-day under control, so I'm living aligned with my priorities. So when I hit my head to the pillow each night, I'm like, okay, I did the things that make me feel like I am honoring my priorities. That time management program or podcast is going to be what is best for you. So I'll leave that in the show notes. Check it out, and I will talk to you guys next time. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you loved what you heard or you want to share your favorite episode topics, please leave a rating and review. This helps the podcast growth and gives people an idea of what the podcast is all about. Something new and exciting that I wanted to share with you before we go is that we now have a Patreon page. This has replaced the Feminine Edge collective community in a cohesive place that is easier for me to manage and cheaper for you. If you are interested in our monthly classes, exclusive day in the life vlogs, Bible studies, community Q&A, and more, go to patreon.com/livingInSync and join for just $5 a month. Check out the show notes for any links or details of things referenced in today's episode, and I look forward to chatting with you in the next one.